Okay, welcome everyone. We appreciate especially Congress members and their staff being here today for the first and what will be several congressional briefings hosted by the National Radioactive Waste Coalition. My name is Tim Judson, Executive Director of the Nuclear Information and Resource Service, a founding member of the coalition. I will be your moderator for today's presentation, Nuclear Waste on the Front Lines, False Solutions and Guiding Principles. We will begin the presentation shortly, but first a little bit about the National Radioactive Waste Coalition. We are a growing alliance of more than 40 grassroots, regional, and national organizations. Many of our member groups are based in communities where nuclear waste is stored or are targeted for waste storage. We formed the coalition in 2020 to address one of the most pernicious problems with nuclear waste, the storage and management of irradiated or quote spent nuclear fuel and high-level radioactive waste from both commercial nuclear power plants and weapons production. For more than 80 years, the federal government has failed to come up with a policy and technology for the long-term management of these wastes, which would be workable, and this waste will remain an environmental hazard for more than 1 million years. The Nuclear Waste Policy Act, originally enacted in 1982, does set forth a national policy for establishing geologic repositories for the long-term storage of these nuclear wastes, but amendments made in 1987 limited the search for repository sites to a location at Yucca Mountain on Western Shoshone land in Nevada. That site proved technologically and politically infeasible, but little meaningful legislation has been enacted since then. The DOE has failed to chart a different course for long-term management, and Congress has failed to amend the Nuclear Waste Policy Act to remove the logjam created by the sole designation of Yucca Mountain. Several bills have been predicated on findings and recommendations in the report of a panel established by President Obama, the Blue Ribbon Commission on America's Nuclear Future, and that is one of the topics of today's briefing. The BRC conducted public meetings and issued a report with 6 recommendations in 2012. The NRWC summarized the findings of the BRC's report in a letter sent to all members of Congress and the White House in December 2021. Many of our coalition's members, including 2 of our presenters today, engaged extensively with the BRC and will provide a deeper perspective on the commission and the implications of its report. One of the commission's recommendations was to establish processes for siting nuclear waste facilities based on achieving the consent of communities where they would be located, due to the repeated success of communities, tribal governments, and states in defeating nuclear waste site proposals. The DOE has conducted 3 public comment periods on consent-based siting for so-called centralized interim storage facilities since 2016, which Rose Gardner will discuss from the perspective of communities that are being targeted for CIS. Our coalition was formed to address the failures of federal nuclear waste policy and the dangers nuclear waste poses to communities at every stage of these problems. Reactor communities where waste is stored now, and nuclear weapons facilities, communities targeted for interim and long-term storage, and communities through which waste would be transported. Our goals include the termination of the Yucca Mountain project, prevention of centralized interim storage, greater protection of reactor communities where waste is stored now, and environmentally just, scientifically sound, and democratic policies for nuclear waste in the future. To that end, we have developed a set of guidelines of principles for equitable and humane nuclear waste policy. That will be the final topic of today's briefing. First, you will hear from Rose Gardner, founder of the Alliance for Environmental Strategies, based in Eunice, New Mexico, located between 2 proposed CIS facilities. Next will be Dave Kraft, Executive Director of the Nuclear Energy Information Service, established in 1981 in Chicago, Illinois, and Deb Katz, Executive Director of the Citizens Awareness Network, founded in 1991 in Western Massachusetts, near the Yankee Row and Vermont Yankee nuclear power plants. Finally will be Leona Morgan, an Indigenous community organizer and activist, and founder of the Nuclear Issue Study Group based in Albuquerque, New Mexico. We will have questions and answers after the presentations, so please type your questions into the chat box. We will keep track of them there and get through as many as we can before the hour is up. So with that, I'll hand it over to Rose Gardner of Alliance for Environmental Strategies. Rose?